Series are starting to make a difference to the environment by introducing eco-friendly paper straws to their 200 ml juice cartons. iloveza.com, in collaboration with Series, are starting up a conservation conversation with some industry experts.
Welcome to Conservation Starter. Welcome to Conservation Starter. I'm your host, Ziyaad Plaatjes, and today on the show, we are chatting to Martin Neethling, the CMO Sub-Saharan Africa at PepsiCO. Welcome to the show, Martin. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for the invite, Ziyaad. Lovely to be with you.
Thank you. Martin, tell us about a series and your role, or PepsiCO and your role in the organization.
Well, my role is to look after these fabulous brands that we have in the business. I'm really the custodian of them for the time that I'm there. And PepsiCO Sub-Saharan Africa has a treasure trove of fabulous brands. Some of them are global brands, of course, like Lay's and Pepsi itself, Doritos. And many of them are South African gems. Remember that PepsiCO SSA today includes what was Pioneer Foods, a listed South African food business. That deal was done a couple of years ago. And we've got some of South Africa's most loved household names as part of our portfolio of brands. One of those is Series. But of course, there are many others in the portfolio, including Weet-Bix and Sasco and White Star. We even have some global brands that we acquired along the way, like Marmite. We have the fabulous Simba brand, which just about everybody grew up with, Knickknacks. So we've really got some of South Africa's very well-known, iconic household names in the portfolio, and my job is to look after them.
Tell me, Martin, a Series has recently replaced the plastic straw with now a paper straw in their 200 ml juice carton. Why the change?
Yeah. Well, Ziyaad, we're anxious about the environment around us, the massive amount of pollution that we as consumers, we as South Africans, we as people, including big businesses like ours, spew out into the environment. I mean, this is a reality, and we are late in the day on this. At question here is the plastic single-use elements of our packaging. And of course, that little straw that gets attached to our 200 ml juice cartons is a problem. Those straws are ubiquitous. You can't get the juice out of the carton without them, but they don't easily get recycled. They go into landfill, but they're very light, so they drop to the bottom. Waste pickers don't, for the most part, pick them up because they collect waste by weight or volume. So those straws hang around, and they don't come back into the recycling value chain with much ease. So we've known for some time that straw has got to go because it's just bad for all of us. But it is a functional necessity for the juice. So the most obvious thing is, get rid of the straw completely, and consumers just won't have it. I mean, we've tested it, we've tried it, we've researched it, we've asked them, why can't mom just put a straw into the lunchbox and her kid brings it home? Well, they want a complete solution. So no straw is not an answer. A paper straw is the answer, we thought that we would have choices, but we didn't really. So this is an important point to make, that it wasn't like we were ignoring this or simply postponing it. We just didn't have a solution. There wasn't one. The big carton suppliers didn't have solutions for us. The people who make paper straws didn't have a solution. And the reason is because the straw has to bend You know, if you've drunk out of one of those little cartons, there's that little telescopic corner. Now, why have you got that? Well, you've got that because you've got to get to the bottom of the carton. If the straw is just the length of the carton, then, well, when you get to the bottom, you lose the straw into the box. So you got to have a curve in it to make it longer than the carton itself. So now you need to try and make something out of paper that'll bend. And then when you bend it back and you put it in the carton, it's not going to suddenly go all mushy. So I'm sure you can sort of figure out that now presents itself as something of an interesting challenge. Anyway, we've been at it, and we've been working with some tremendous partners on this. We've been testing straws for a very long time. Trying to find one that isn't going to be loaded with equally terrible other things to try and make it not soggy, that'll last, that'll bend, and that isn't terrible to drink out of, or in some way taints the flavor of the juice. But in the end, we felt like we cracked it, and that's when we said, okay, we're ready to go, and we're going to tell everybody about this fabulous paper straw that we're now going to put on our juice packs.
You mentioned the not being soggy and not disintegrating into the juice carton. How did you manage to get around that, or how is your straw better than what's on the market at the moment?
Well, a regular paper straw, just a straight one, that you might find, in a fast food place, one of the long ones, doesn't need a bend. So that's quite a basic thing, and it doesn't last very long. Our one needed to be a bit stronger, so we had to coat it. But of course, you've got to coat it with something that is food friendly. And that will give it a little bit more resilience. It's a little bit like using starch. You know what I mean? It firms the thing up, and that's what basically we had to do. So we had to figure out a solution for a coating that would meet all the required food safety standards that we adhere to, including European ones, which are very high, and that wouldn't leave you with a taste in your mouth. So in the end, that's what it is. It's also laminated, remember, so it's more than one layer. So you're taking very thin pieces of paper and you're rolling them together, and that gives it strength. So the straw is laminated and coated, and because it's that, it works. And that's the straw now that you have. So it's quite different from a regular straight one that you might pick up.
I've noticed our son takes quite a long time to drink his juice, and the straw was fine for the time that he needed to drink it. So I think it's perfect.
Good. Yeah, exactly. What we also find sometimes is that kids chew on the end of it. If they're walking around with it for a while, then they chew on the end of it. They do that with plastic straws too. And the straw as it stands also stands up to a reasonable amount of chewing. I mean, eventually, obviously, you'll wreck it, but if it's not too bad, it'll hold up and you'll still get the juice through it.
So should we try a chew test then?
Yes, let me know.
Martin, as you mentioned, this is not an overnight process. There's quite a long, lengthy implementation, decision-making that goes into it. How long was this actually? Can you take us through the whole process?
No, look, I mean, we set the agenda to move away from a plastic straw. I mean, this is well pre-COVID. I mean, it must be 3.5 years maybe now that this has been a high agenda item for us. But I would say that once we were sort of actively going and we were properly engaging with global partners, we've had about a 30-month, I would say, about a 30-month run-in. It wouldn't always be that long, but because we were trying to establish something that didn't exist, it took longer. And then remember, you've got a whole series of hurdles you've got to clear. I mean, the one is that the thing has got to work functionally. So that's just a practical look. Can you actually drink out of it? Will it hold up? Does it bend or doesn't it? Is it functionally fit for purpose? 2, does it meet food safety requirements and standards. So there's an enormous amount of testing then that you've got to do. You've got to send these things away. Some of the testing gets done in South Africa. You've got to go back to suppliers and change ingredients. So there's a food safety requirement. Then there's a consumer testing requirement. I mean, we had to put this straw into the hands of moms and kids to see how they felt about it, right? A whole lot of the straws that we tested didn't get through that. They met all the other requirements, they worked, they met the food safety requirements, but once we got into the consumer testing phase, they failed. We weren't going to now, kind of do harm to our market-leading series brand by putting a straw on that consumers said, yuck, we don't want that straw. So we had to test it. Then, once that's done, we had to figure out whether, can it run in the factory? You've got to do trials because you're attaching a straw to those things at very high speed, and the shape of the thing is slightly different now. So your applicator machine works at a slightly different rate. The glue, so you're testing it. Then you've got to do trials in the transportation of it. Remember that these things go into little shrinks, then they go into cartons, they go onto pallets, they go into trucks, they go through warehouses. Along the way, they take a reasonable amount of beating. By the time it gets unpacked at the other end, when you go into your local supermarket and take one off the shelf, is the straw still there? Has it been damaged in some way? Is the straw strong enough to hold up through the supply chain? So then we had to run, transportation trials in it, and then in the end, when you've gone through all of that, you go, okay, we're ready, now let's place an order for these things commercially and gear ourselves up and put it through the system. So that's been the news over the last couple of months that you're responding to.
Choose nature. Choose turtles. Choose tomorrow. Choose to make a difference. Choose eco-friendly paper straws. Choose Ceres.
What's next on the green journey for Ceres?
Well, I think that it's a bigger question because the extended producer responsibility legislation on SA is pushing us all to be more thoughtful, and we welcome it because the journey of trying to reduce packaging waste broadly, needs everybody. It needs the suppliers of the packaging. It needs the people who help recover it, the recycle people. It needs the retailers to come on board, and of course, it needs people like us. So we just welcome this thing because it's not just us now. And there are lots of things that we're looking at. I think the most obvious, easy thing is light weighting. So, if you're using a single-use plastic bottle, can you use less plastic? The bottle becomes lighter. So instead of using X amount of plastic, you're using Y. Now, that's a good idea, right? So, lightweight the bottle if you can, but not beyond a point where the bottle will now collapse because bottles get stacked on each other. So they've got to have some strength. So lightweighting is one. Using recycled material in the bottle is another. So rPET, that's a very, very good thing to try and do. It's quite hard because it's expensive. There's not too much rPET available. So that's another angle. There's other plastic that comes into the system, like the stuff you use to wrap your pallets. There are all the poly materials that we use. For example, the poly bags that we use to house cereals. Can those things be lightweighted? Can we remove layers from those? And then you get into the papers and the other packaging categories as well. So I would say that there's lots for us to do, and we're working on multiple projects, simultaneously.
Martin, are there any green initiatives which Ceres is currently involved in, or something close to your heart which you feel South Africans should be aware of? Ceres
is rooted in the town of Ceres, and we play an important role as an employer in that town. It's also worth remembering, of course, that the brand name is named after that town and that valley. So we take our responsibility as a sort of citizen there pretty seriously. So that that factory has got lots of initiatives running. One which I think would be sort of interesting to your viewers is the journey to use less water. How much water do you need to use to produce a liter of juice? And you might think, well, why would that matter? Well, the smarter you are with water usage in the plant, the gentler you're going to be on the environment. So that plant has a whole water purification setup. We've changed many aspects of the process to ensure that we can clean, for example, using less water, that we can process the juice more efficiently and lose less water in the processing, sort of aspect of the thing. And so we go on. So we've dramatically reduced the amount of water that the factory needs to produce a liter of juice. And, we'll carry on. There's still further frontiers that we can cross to improve that. But we're well on the way. Certainly that series factory of ours now is right up there, with sort of best global standards. And we think we can go further. The other thing is to use as much local fruit as we can. Remember that fruit concentrate and fruit puree is a global commodity. It's produced and sold all the way around the world. Now, in Ceres' early days, everything that we used in that factory came out of that valley. I mean, it really did. But we've long outgrown it. I mean, we buy as much as we can there, but now we need to supplement with stuff we buy from further afield. But in more recent times, we've really renewed our commitment to supporting local suppliers and local farmers, and we're looking for opportunities to increase the local content, particularly in Ceres, again, beyond where we are at the moment. And that really excites me as well.
How has the market received the new Ceres paper straw?
Look, it's quite new, but the response has been overwhelmingly positive. We're just delighted. So people have been, very, very kind of, well, what took you so long? And thank you for doing it. So that's been super, super exciting for us. But we'll see as the following months sort of unfold. I like to let this thing run for a while before you claim victory. But certainly the initial response has been fantastic. I think the one thing to sort of leave your viewers with is that Ceres is a very iconic brand in South Africa, but it is also extremely well known in other markets. What many people don't realize is that Ceres is much bigger outside of South Africa than it is inside South Africa. It is exported to over 65 countries around the world. It's when you travel to a food show in Europe and you say you're from PepsiCO or Pioneer, they might smile at you, and you tell them you're from Ceres Fruit Juices, and they're your friend. So we love the fact that we've got a very wonderful South African brand that has reached into so many corners of the world.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Martin, for joining us on the show today. It was a very interesting and lovely chat.
Great. Pleasure to be with you. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Next week on Conservation Starter. Tune in and stand a chance to win some awesome prizes. Join the conversation on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Hashtag Ceres Paper Straw Challenge and hashtag Keep ZA Clean. Subscribe to us on YouTube and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at iloveza.com and log on to our website www.iloveza.com.